I'm getting ready to go ahead and start fitting the flap onto my right wing. Before I get started on that, again, what I prefer to do, since I've got the aileron hanging off of the wing and I'm going to be working with this flap hanging off of the wing, I personally feel better having this other skin in place, again, just to make sure everything stays square and true. However, you could use the neutral block, the alignment jig that goes in here to hold the push-pull tube and the aileron in place. You could use that to hold the aileron in place while you fit the flap, but once you have the skin on, you can't get in here to do anything with it. If that were to move or to give you any kind of trouble, you can't do anything with it until you take the skin off. You'd have to take the skin off to get to it. So I've elected to take it out, take the tube out, and go back to using my block. This is the alignment block that I had used just to get the aileron lined up here with the trailing edge on my reference point. That's not critical now, but I just wanted to have the aileron set at its neutral position and be able to have the skin in place. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then I'm going to start fitting this flap in here. Hey everybody, I just wanted to give just a kind of a quick overall view of the wing setup and how I have things configured here so I can start setting up the flap. So you can see I've got the wing on my bench. The aileron has already been attached, as you've probably seen from my other videos. It's in place. I still have my reference mark or my reference board on this end. I've got my block of wood underneath inside this hinge area to hold the aileron in place. This is a piece of 3/16 inch thick plywood that I have taped to the edge of the aileron. This is my spacing between the aileron and the flap. As you can see, I've got the skins on. The skins have to be on when you start setting your holes for your aileron or for your flap. So the skins are on. Obviously, I've got the flap in position. I've just got a Cleco clamp on this end and a pair of vice grips on this end, loosely clipped or clamped. The jaws of the vice grip are wrapped in tape so it doesn't mar the skin or the other aluminum underneath here. I've got my support stand here to help support the flap so it's not moving around. This stand is adjustable up and down so I can set this edge even with the edge of the aileron. I can manipulate this using this stand. So everything is now set. I'm going to start going into detail on how to get this in, how to get these holes drilled through the hinge and get your alignments and everything correct. I believe I've done this, I'm going to do this differently than I had done the left wing, I believe. I'm going to go back and look at my pictures when I did the left wing. I think what I had done on the left wing was I think I tried to put everything together and match drill it. And then I took everything apart and I did the machine countersinking after the fact. But on this one, on that filler panel that's underneath, I did the countersinking on that already. I've already countersunk it, so there's really no point in match drilling. So I'll get into that, but I just wanted to have this little bit of an overview real quick before I get into it, and now we'll get into it in a little bit more detail and see what gives. All right. I've got the flap now removed from the wing, and I want to make sure that I don't move my stand, and I'll show you why here in a minute. But the flap is out. You can clearly see here I've got my block of wood back here, which is holding the aileron in place, and then this is my 3/16 inch plywood representing the gap between the flap and the aileron. The instructions say, in one area the instructions say that this gap is 1/4 inch, but in a different area of the plans it says that there should be a minimum of 3/16. So this is 3/16. Of course, there's a little bit of tape here, so whatever that may or may not add to the gap. Of course, you're not going to get your flap completely wedged up against here super tight. So with the plywood in place, a little bit of tape, and then the flap's going to come up here and gently kiss this. By the time you get everything match drilled, clecoed, and all that, you'll probably be closer to a 1/4 inch anyway. So I decided to start thin and get to that 1/4 inch gap rather than having a 1/4 inch in here of plywood and end up with a gap bigger. So the other thing that I wanted to show was this filler panel here, this panel with the holes in it. This of course is riveted in place. Before I riveted it, I had gone ahead and countersunk these holes here, which of course you can't see because I've got the skin on. But these holes on this side are machine countersunk so that this bottom edge here stays flat. So you don't dimple this. You have to machine countersink from this side. This flat edge is where the flap hinge is going to mate. So I've already done this machine countersinking on here. So at this point there isn't any real benefit to trying to match drill through the skin, through this, and into the aileron hinge. The aileron hinge is not pre-drilled. I say it's pointless because since I've machine countersunk this, it's opened up the holes a little bit during the machine countersinking process. So that it's not going to be an accurate match drill anyway. The other thing I wanted to point out was this has got a little bit of I wouldn't say a warp, it's just kind of bent a little bit, and again that's all from the forming process of the part. It's relatively thin, it's long, it's got holes in it, it's got the lightning holes in it. When it's formed, it's got a little bit of a bow to it. And because of that, you can see how it sticks out from the skin. Now I can bring that back by hand easy enough like this and get the holes to line up. But yesterday I struggled because I had the flap in here, and using my clamps I'm trying to align the flap with the aileron. I'm trying to get the trailing edge even with the aileron. I'm trying to get it square this way with the wing and the end of the aileron, and at the same time I'm trying to pull this back into here to get it aligned. It was just kind of a mess. So here's my new plan. Since this is already countersunk and it's already riveted in place, I'm going to go ahead, bring my flap back over here, and I'm going to put the hinge on top of this and under the skin. So I'm just going to fit the hinge under the skin only. I'm not going to worry about this bracket. Since the skin is in place and it's clecoed and it's pre-drilled, I'm going to fit the hinge to the skin. I'm going to get all my alignments correct, clamp it in place, and I'm going to just come through and start match drilling the skin directly to the hinge of the flap. Now of course I'm not going to drill all the way through because this is not in alignment because of the flexing and all that. So I'll probably do my drill bit method where when I've got everything in place, I've got the hinge tucked up underneath here, I'll come in with my drill bit and just make a mark into the hinge, take the flap out, and then drill those marks away from the wing. That's kind of what I'm going to try doing. Actually, I think that's going to be a lot easier than what I had done on that wing, because I don't know if you can see, but here is this filler piece. And I had fit the flap, the filler piece, and the skins all together and tried match drilling that all together as a unit, and then took everything apart, and then I came back and I had to do all of that machine countersinking with it in place like you see it. This one I had machine countersunk, as you saw in my other video, on the drill press, and I think that's a lot easier. And actually I think fitting the flap in here and not worrying about the brace at the moment, just fitting and match drilling the flap to the skin holes, I think is the way to go, because these are already pre-punched. The skin is already clecoed to the wing, so this is a really good solid template to match drill your flap hinge. So I'm going to try that. All right, that's enough yip yap. Let me get into it and see if it works out. One more quick thing I almost forgot. You can see I've got blue painter's tape here. And that's just so when I'm moving my flap in and out and taking it off and putting it back in and all that stuff, it doesn't get scratched by this edge of the top skin. So I just tape it off with some painter's tape just to kind of protect this edge and protect the skin of the flap when I'm moving stuff around. Hey, all right, so I'm gonna bring my flap over. I'm going to fit the hinge up in here and lay it on my support here. Now, the reason why I didn't want to disturb this, like I had mentioned a minute ago, I've got this set up just right so that it's at the right height in relationship to the trailing edge of the aileron. And it also balances the flap really well, so I can come in here, lay the flap in here, and let go of it, and it stays put. It's really nice, even without clamps. It's very stationary and supported really well. That's why I want to make sure I don't disturb this. So let me grab the flap and I'll put it in here, and you'll be able to see what it is I'm talking about. Alright, so I'm just going to try to fit this hinge just underneath the skin. I'm not going to put it underneath the filler panel where it's ultimately will be mounted, but for now I'm just going to put it under the skin. So I'll try to fit that corner in first, because that seems to be where the biggest gap is, and then I'm just kind of working it along like that, and then I can move it down up against my plywood here, if I'm not in the way. There. That's all I need to do for the moment. Now, I'll turn the video camera off because this is an old camera, like I've mentioned multiple times, and it has very limited space, so I can't film everything I do real time. But I'll start working this and getting it aligned and in position, and I'll start doing my holes.